Good morning, afternoon and evening everyone, depending on where in the world you are. It is with great pleasure that Anton and I are here today to tell you a story.
The story of an investigation into a Dutch cybercriminal syndicate that raised from nothing to become one of the most major cybercrime enablers in the Netherlands and Belgium.
And we will take this story all the way to its ending. 2020 was a bad year in terms of increased cybercrime activity. With the start of the COVID-19 pandemic and the lockdowns all over the world, two scenarios were created. First, an increase in the number of vulnerable people that are more prone to fall for a scam or a phishing attack. The second scenario was an increase in people that lost their source of income or that just couldn't find a job. They started looking for an easy way to make money and fast. The Netherlands was not an exception to this, and the result was a rise in phishing attacks targeting Dutch and Belgian residents.
So fraudsters use different vectors to reach potential victims. Say email, text message or even WhatsApp are the favorite communication tools in the region. So message sent to victims contained a malicious link leading to the phishing websites were ready to steal their personal and banking information. And the goal is always the same: obtain access to victims' bank account for financial gain.
Helping to fuel this increase in phishing activity in the region, we find a Dutch-speaking criminal group, the Fraud Family, as they call themselves. The Fraud Family not only rented and sold sophisticated phishing frameworks to other cybercriminals, but they also went a step further. They developed their own framework and tailored it to the needs of the ever-growing community they had created. To put things in context, phishing frameworks, or live or dynamic kits as they're also known, allow attackers with minimal skills to optimize the creation and design of phishing campaigns. We'll see later on other advantages these kits have over more common and simple phishing kits. This group chose Telegram Messenger as their platform to advertise and distribute their products and services, and to provide support to their clients. Discussions started to take place in multiple Telegram channels, both public and private. The increased popularity led the way to position the Fraud Family as major enablers of cybercrime in the Netherlands and Belgium. Let's look at a couple of methods attackers are following when using Fraud Family's tools. The first method works like this. An attacker sends potential victims messages via email or SMS impersonating some popular Dutch brand. The recipient opens the message containing a believable lure and clicks on a link which leads them to a phishing site. The phishing site was previously crafted and customized using a management panel, which is part of the framework. This panel is also used to interact with the victim through the phishing site in real time. The fraudster uses the panel to request and obtain banking and personal information from the victim, and with this data in hand, the attacker can then access the victim's bank account. Here are some samples of messages being sent to the victims. In this case, a local company connecting home seekers with the housing supply is being impersonated. After accessing the link in the message, victims get presented with a phishing site that asks to pay a small fee. Here the victim can select their bank, and then as I impersonated, the selected bank is shown. In this slide, you can see other lures being used: government services, package delivery, or even an online marketplace. Speaking of online marketplaces, the other method used by attackers to defraud victims is related to this. Let's see it with more detail. In this method, a seller posts an item for sale on a marketplace platform. A fraudster finds this ad and contacts the seller showing interest in the item being sold. At this point, the fraudster moves the conversation to WhatsApp and asks the seller to verify themselves, to prove they're not a scammer. To do this, the real scammer provides a fake payment request for 1 cent. When the seller, now a victim, tries to pay the small amount, they get presented with a phishing site just like those seen in the previous slides. And from here on, everything goes the same way as with the other method. Here you can see a phishing site impersonating a popular Dutch online marketplace and the different Dutch banks the victim can choose from. Here you see a phishing site mimicking one of the banks, another bank, and another one. One of the features that make dynamic kits so attractive is the ability to defeat multi-factor authentication. Basically, The web panel interacts in real time with the phishing site. Data obtained from the victim is sent to the panel, and the fraudster can ask for any additional information they may need to get access to the victim's bank account. This includes personal information, multi-factor authentication tokens, or even Home15 information. While the phishing site waits for further instruction from the fraudster, the victim is looking at a "please wait" message on the screen, like this one here. Now let's take a closer look at the panels that were distributed by the fraud family. Early in 2020, the fraud family started distributing a modified version of a popular framework and called it NL Multipanel. Then, by the end of the year, the group started advertising a new, lightweight framework that was optimized for mobile use. Many Dutch cybercriminals use mobile devices to connect to the web panels and manage their phishing campaigns. This live kit was called Express. Then, in the spring of 2021, the gangs started to promote a shiny new framework, one they were proud to call their own. It was named Reliable to honor its developer and leader of the family. Let's now have a look at some monetary aspects of this enterprise. Here you see a price comparison between the three partners. In the case of the monthly subscription, they offer full support and everything you need to get the campaigns going, say domains, hosting, and infrastructure setup. More skilled fraudsters could opt to just buy the framework and do everything themselves, saving some money this way. Now let's look at some numbers. Fortunately, because of its code simplicity, it is very difficult for us to create proper detection rules for Express panel, so we cannot provide an accurate number for it. In the case of NL Multipanel and Reliable, you can see how much popular the Reliable panel got. Okay, let's see more technical details about these panels. NL Multipanel is based on uAdmin, a very popular phishing panel developed by Ukrainian actor Katis. It was customized by members of the fraud family to fit the Dutch cybercriminal scene. It uses tokens and OPanel, a couple of uAdmin plugins that allow attackers to interact with their victims in real time, meaning they can defeat multi-factor authentication. The image shows the panel's login interface. After signing in, you get presented with this welcome screen that gives credit to some members of the family, including Reliable. And this is the tokens plugin. Here attackers can see if somebody is currently on the phishing site and if victims have provided any information. If you click on that OPanel button you see to the right of each entry, a new window opens showing the OPanel plugin. And here it is, where the fraudsters can interact with their victim. You can see to the right a set of operations that can be performed, including asking for any additional information that may be needed to access the victim's bank account. These operations can be fully customized by the panel's operators. Express panel. This framework was not advertised for long, and although we still see it in use from time to time, it is not as popular as the other two. This image shows a phishing site targeting Belgian residents.
Excuse me, Roberto. I know it's difficult to create detection rules based on a source code, but is there a way to determine when phishers are using the Express framework?
Yes, of course. If you take a closer look at the URL, you see that index !TRXID, that's a death giveaway somebody is using the Express framework. And we go to the third framework, the Reliable panel. It was created in parallel to the Express panel by threat actor Reliable. Although it made its public appearance in November of 2020, it kept a low profile until the spring of 2021, when members of the fraud family started advertising it heavily. It was developed from scratch, using a different scripting language than the one used to build NL Multipanel. It is also faster than NL Multipanel and in all its variants, but equally flexible and customizable. And of course, it allows the operator to interact in real time with the victims. In fact, with the Reliable panel, they remove many of the weaknesses uAdmin has, but more importantly, they crafted it to the Dutch and Belgian markets. The image on the screen shows the login page of its admin interface. After signing in, you see the dashboard of the panel. It shows some stats, and to the left you have a menu showing the different operations that can be performed. First in the menu is Request. Here the fraudsters can customize their campaigns. Select the lure and a unique token value that will be needed to access the phishing page. This way, they make sure only victims can access the site. Next in the menu is Logs. Here the attackers see who is on the phishing site and if it is a bot or not. Do you see that value after the URL? That is the randomly generated token that I mentioned before. And by clicking on the blue button, the attacker can open another window where they can interact with the victim through the phishing site. And that is what you see in this slide. The red bar tells the attacker that the victim is still connected and the phishing site is waiting for further instructions. And now that we know everything about the phishing operation and the tools being used, I would like to invite Anton to share inner details about the fraud family and the investigation he conducted.
Thank you, Roberto, for such a deep dive into the schemes and panels being used by threat actors. Let's continue this story from an investigative perspective. So, Fraud Family Group created really sophisticated tools and made them available for lower skilled criminals. Their phishing pages impersonated well-known local brands such as marketplaces, regional banks, and even governmental institutions, and they used also regional payment mechanism to lure victims. This availability and local approach made their phishing panels one of the most serious cyber threat in the region. Even our local clients were reported about tremendous number of victims affected by phishing. So it was clear that monitoring and responding to particular phishing sites alone wouldn't completely resolve the issue. And this was the reason behind initiating an investigations into the local phishing threat and the most advanced criminal group in the region, the Fraud Family. To better understand the surface of the threat and find out when the group appeared, how evolved, we analyzed the history of the phishing issue in the Netherlands starting from 2018. So let's take a closer look at the timeline. First sites of uadmin phishing kit on the Dutch ground appeared in May 2018, when one of the Dutch-speaking threat actor bought uadmin from its developer on Exploit.in forum. Then, phishing panel business moved to Telegram, where Dutch-speaking threat actors started to actively advertising phishing panels in local fraud and cybercrime-related groups. Since 2018, the number of sellers and therefore criminals using panels has drastically increased, so uadmin phishing panels have become a well-known product among mid-level fraudsters. However, uadmin still requires some technical knowledge and skills, and this is probably why fraud as a service appeared. In February 2020, the first phishing framework advertised by Fraud Family was detected. It was NL Multipanel, which Roberto described perfectly. And here the rising of the group began. 1 year later, the source code of NL Multipanel was leaked, which led to several fraudsters simply rebuilding it and starting to advertise the same phishing panel under their own brand. However, Fraud Family didn't stay on the sidelines for long, and in the beginning of 2021, they released 2 brand new panels. It was Express and Reliable panel. These were completely new solutions, easier to operate and harder to detect, and that made Fraud Family a leading fraud as a service provider in the Dutch-speaking fraud market. From April to July, phishing panels were at their prime, and therefore so was the Fraud Family Group. And that time it was clear that we needed to go beyond the classical approach. So in April our investigation began. But why Fraud Family Group? Well, let's take a bit closer look at their family business. In fact, the Fraud Family Group wasn't the only one in the Dutch-speaking criminal community. However, they were the most advanced fraud as a service provider. According to our research, 2,000 users were subscribed to their Telegram groups and channels, and approximately 150 of them were real fraudsters purchasing their service and using it to conduct attacks. Monthly income only from selling frameworks alone during the group's prime reached 40,000 euro per month, and the total damage caused by phishing activity can hardly be calculated precisely, but it's definitely several times higher. So what made them so dominant? Well, first of all, is a unique phishing panels with a lower detection probability. The second is low entry level, so criminals don't need any deep technical skills to perform the attacks. And the last is the service model, pay and do fraud. These factors made them one of the most dangerous fraud gang among Dutch-based cybercriminals, and it also made them the aim of our investigation. So it's time to present the threat actors of this story. The main developer and the main acting character is the threat actor with nickname Reliable. He was responsible for developing the phishing frameworks and doing software improvements, while another threat actor with hardly pronounceable nickname organized the advertising and selling the phishing panels. The rest of the group members were simply reselling the panels and distributing advertisement through the related fraud channels. They don't play a significant role in our story, but they were also a part of this investigation. So the whole family was quite skilled and worked hard to keep their family business away from prying eyes. But initially, it didn't spoil the end of the story. So let's dive deeper into investigation process. What were the sources of intelligence about the criminals? What kind of information did we manage to observe? And how did it finally conclude with the criminals' arrests? So our research started from the main cause of the problem, phishing pages and its admin panels. Since initially it was a uadmin-based framework, we managed to observe the administration interface, and by using some magic spells, we were able to look inside them. The funny thing here is that there is a common belief among fraudsters that you need to test the phishing page on yourself before sending it to the wild and using on real victim. And those guys were not exception. Their testing attempts yielded some quite interesting and useful results about the criminals themselves, such as IP addresses and device they used for it. Moreover, some of the panels being used by threat actors contained undeclared features. Thanks to the phishing kit developers who left those surprises for us, we were able to observe the logs of SSH sessions and monitor the current connections to the admin part of the panel. This served us as a great source of information about the criminals behind the phishing panels. To dissect the infrastructure deeper, we extracted the source code of several panels. A source code analysis confirmed the origin of the panels. It was NL multi-panel based by uadmin, initially developed by Cactus. In addition to the artifacts from Cactus, we also observed Telegram accounts apparently left by sellers and developers of those variants of phishing kits. So we followed this trail into Telegram, where the family conducted its business. Telegram usernames were the key to the threat actors, but we still knew nothing about the entire group. In such cases, one of the best sources of intelligence about criminals, the criminals themselves. So with just of a bit social engineering, we started to communicate with the known threat actors and were really surprised with the results. Criminals were literally telling the whole story by themselves. So by engaging with them, we got information about the panels, its types and versions, who was selling it and what were the prices, how fraud service worked, who was the main developer, and also got some insights about the relationships inside the fraud family. With a bit of investigative magic and tools, we also managed to obtain information about IP addresses, geolocations, and the devices that the threat actors used. At this moment, we were pretty sure that there is an organized group behind these phishing panels. But we still needed to see a wider picture of the fraud family's activities to obtain more information of the threat actors behind. And this is where Telegram monitoring capabilities made a difference. Thousands of messages left by only those two threat actors painted a perfect picture of where the fraud family advertised their products, conducted customer support, and even discussed questions related to fraud family business. In addition, group memberships of the users also gave insights on their interests and even location. So for Reliable, for the main developer of the kits, it was confirmed that he is interested in software development because he was a part of the related Telegram chats and actively discussed things connected with the development there. And for the second threat actor, we presumed his geolocation just because of the local group memberships. So he was a member of Utrecht group and discussed their fraud-related questions. Monitoring the related groups and chats more deeply shed the light on the group's business and internal structure. However, we needed more information about the people inside. As I mentioned before, one of the best sources of information is people, and sometimes you don't even need to ask them. Tracking down the Telegram traces of fraud family members, we analyzed messages, threads left in various public and private Telegram chats, and it was an insane amount of data, by the way. Finally, we were rewarded for our hard work and were able to determine their roles, activities, possible locations, and even ages. In this case, with the main developer, even memes were a really useful source of intelligence about his identity. So let's return to the criminals' mistakes. The group's members have done lots of them. For instance, one of the main characters in this story complained about the bad customer service from the hosting provider he used for his infrastructure. And in one of the private Telegram group, he shared a screenshot of email where the ticket ID was exposed. So using this, we were able to open the whole customer ticket and obtain details about infrastructure he hosted and even some details about the account's owner. Another big mistake made when they posted a screenshot of successful transactions to a cryptocurrency wallet. And everybody knows that Bitcoin definitely isn't the best way to hide illicit financial flows. It sounds simple, but finding those silly mistakes is a quite scrupulous work and takes hours of analysis. But it's certainly worth it. Mistakes made by criminals provide small but really important pieces to puzzle when trying to put together a complete picture of the cybercriminal's profile. Finally, by connecting all the dots in one place, we compiled detailed profiles on the main threat actors. Starting only from domains and nicknames, we collected data about their possible locations, ages, interests, IP addresses, devices that we were using, and some other information which made the ending of this story possible. So we shared all the information we had about the fraud family and its members with the Dutch police, and they acted really promptly. As a result of the joint operation, on the 20th of July, these two young cybercriminals were apprehended by Dutch police for developing and selling phishing panels. Police seized their devices and took over the control of channel related to the syndicate. The fraud family had fallen. What started with the detection of phishing sites concluded with the arrest of one of the region's most advanced phishing panel providers. And that is exactly the way how we deal with the local cyber threats at Group IB.
We not only detect the threat, but we also understand it. We peel layer by layer until we get to the core and understand every single detail of it. Who is behind the threat? Where they're from and how they're doing it? Those are questions we always look to answer.
And then we implement our knowledge about the adversaries into our systems and tools, and then use it to bring our fight against the cybercrime as a step further, uncovering the threat actors and bringing them to justice. Going back to the story, now the lead developer of Fraud Family and their most notorious seller are out of equation. Some may think it's over, but is it?
The disruption of the Fraud Family's operations opened opportunity for criminals who were in their shadow. In addition, the actors that were not under investigation immediately laid low, deleted their online criminal presence and went silent for a short time. But after a while, they re-emerged under new criminal identities.
Even the Fraud Family's heritage, the panels, were redesigned and continue to be in use. In fact, we already spotted a new variant of the reliable panel in the wild. But well, it's not new to us. We already know every single detail of the scheme and we're ready to act promptly. And even if a new family arises, we know how to make them fall.
Thank you very much for your attention.
We really hope that you enjoyed our presentation.